Mr. Nova, how are you doing?
Mr. Fallen, I'm doing great, chatting it up with the homies, getting ready to get into this, talking a bit about anime next. Have you mentioned that at all yet?
Oh, no, I have not. I have not mentioned Anime Next just yet. I was waiting for you, Mr. Nova.
Give us a little rundown, because I just peeked on it. I just peeked on it.
Okay. So basically, my experience for Anime Next as I've been growing up, I've obviously always been into anime, just like Nova here. And luckily, over here on the East Coast, Anime Next is basically the biggest anime convention that you could go to. So when I got into like my later teens and my 20s, I started going to Anime Next. It's always in Atlantic City. It's at a huge convention hall, and it's such a great experience every single time. So this year, we had tickets already, and then I was like, oh, they're gonna do it digitally, all right. And then I saw randomly on their website, I was like, oh, we can apply to be a streamer for it. I was like, hey Nova, you want to just like quickly apply and see what happens? And Nova was like, yeah, why not? So we did it. We applied, and then big Montings. They
Yup.
contacted us and said, hey. Yo, we want you guys to do Anime Crunch for be one of our featured streamers, and we are going to be one of their featured panelists here. So we're going to be creating a full 4-hour panel for you guys on Anime Crunch. We're putting money into overlays, logos, designs to make this as cool as
Oh,
possible for
so
the
much
whole
coming,
experience.
guys. Some really
Yeah,
cool
there's a
graphics.
lot of cool stuff coming.
Yeah.
So we're going to be changing up the whole look of the entire show for you guys for that panel. We're going to be having concepts like we're going to have our first segment where we're going to kind of go through the ages and the decades of anime, ranging from let's say like the 80s all the way to current day, right? And then you got stuff that we'll be moving through. For example, we'll be moving into like what makes a meta anime. And then we have our featured analyst. Y'all know him, Nine Lives,
The
stopping by.
boy.
The boy. He's going to be stopping by and hosting his own segment as well. So we're going to have a featured segment with him, and then we're going to be having some Q&A sessions and a lot of other content that we're going to be talking about. Things like upcoming anime games, upcoming anime that are going to be coming that are going to be meta, because we're super excited for a handful of them too. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys are excited for it. And then along with that, guys, we not only got selected to be their featured streamers for Anime Crunch, but also both of us got featured streamer position
Yes, we
for my
did.
yeah, for my category, FPS shooter on Tarkov, and Nova got it for the racing category.
Yeah, I'm super
Big,
excited
big
about
hype.
that. One thing I want to say about the Anime Crunch content for the convention, it's something we really haven't done if you think about it, because this is content that really isn't specific to any series. So you guys are going to be able to tune in at any point. Don't worry about not having seen a series or tuning in late, because this is going to be content with the different panel categories and selections we're talking about. Tune in at any time, pop in, talk to us for a little bit. If you're at work, you're in the bathroom, pop in and say hey.
Yeah, literally just pop in and say, "Hey, what's up?" whenever you want.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be talking all sorts of different topics, all sorts of different animes, and what we want from you guys is just to show up and just ask questions if you guys want. Just interact a little bit, hang out with us. Because the main point of this is just to be in a panel, right? Because if you guys have ever gone to a convention, they have panels that go on all day long, and you go in and they just have some sort of theme or presentation. They talk about it, and then the audience just goes ahead and chimes in and talks about it. Bro, I went to a panel once at Anime Next that was about One Piece themed, but it was all about One Piece boats and
Right.
whether they would be feasible to sail
So
on
the
the
whole
actual
discussion
ocean.
is just like, yeah, the IRL feasibility of One Piece ships. I love that.
Like so ridiculous, but amazing at the same time. And I love it. It's a wonderful experience, and I really appreciate the whole
I
entire
can't
thing.
wait to go to a convention, man. I think actually I'm gonna go ahead and say it now. Next year, since we're gonna be massive streamers by next year, we'll go together.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll live stream it. We'll go.
100%. Yeah, no, I will go in there. I'll live stream it. I will basically like notify everybody we're there. I mean, it's great for networking, just meeting people, and it's just such a cool energy out there because everyone's just so accepting of one another, you
Oh,
know?
I'm gonna nerd out. I'll probably
Yeah.
cosplay and nerd out. Like,
Oh
let's
yeah, dude.
go.
I cosplay every time. Last time I went to Anime NYC and I cosplayed as Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, and then I also did Obi, Captain Obi from Fire Force, and those are
Sick.
so much fun to do. My girlfriend did Maki, with the witch hat and everything. She had the sputters and all that stuff. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. I
It
still need
was
to pick
really
a
really
few
fun.
characters. Kakashi's overdone.
Yeah, well, I love going and picking characters. Like Tanjiro was like one of the only mainstream characters I've ever done. I
Right.
usually pick like off the like kind of like off characters, like side characters that
Hmm.
people know, but they have to like really know the anime to realize it. So for example, like my very first cosplay ever, it wasn't Itachi like everybody else. It was Hidan from the Akatsuki, and
Okay.
I made his big scythe and everything with the rope, and like I could throw it and shit. It was great.
That's
So I made
awesome.
that huge scythe and stuff, and I had like my hair slicked back with like silver gel and shit. It was great.
I wish do you have you have photographs of this? I know you do.
Yeah, I do. 100%.
They're gonna be in the Discord later, guys. Look forward to that. Okay,
But hell yeah,
without further
I'm
ado,
super excited.
let's get into some Durarara, one of my top 5 favorite anime series of all time. As we were talking about earlier, Fall of Neophyte, this series has it touches on almost every single genre. There's so much to say. I don't know how to say it. There's a lot of genres,
All right.
0 to 1,000 really quick. A lot of characters and very deep character development. Those are probably some of the top reasons why it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I could definitely say that if you're a new anime viewer, right, and you don't really know what type of genre you're into, this is a very good anime to watch and start with because it has a little bit of everything, right?
Hmm.
There is sci-fi in here, there is horror in here, there is love, like there's love interest, there's slice of life, there's action. It touches on so many different genres. It has a like intelligent sociopathic like genre in there too. Like if for example, like characters similar to like Light Yagami
Oh yeah.
and Lelouch from Code Geass. Like it has a lot of different angles and perspectives when it comes to genres. And when you watch this, you will be able to identify the different genres and say, "Oh, I really like this aspect of this anime. Let me look into other animes that have this type of genre." And that will definitely give you a good leeway to go into other genres that you might be interested in, right?
Very
So
much
that's what I
so.
really
Very well said.
appreciate about it. I
Yeah,
really appreciate that it has so many different aspects and perspectives to certain genres.
that's a
And
good
then
way of looking at it.
not even just that, the relationships, like
Oh
the
my
level
god.
of detail that they put into individual relationships between people, because you have so many different stories going on, but they all intertwine, is the beauty of this anime,
It
in my
all works
opinion.
together. Yeah, like it feels like they're all side stories, but all of these characters interact daily. All of these characters are worried about as you said, they all are intertwined. It's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah,
Like the
it's
writers
very
of this show put some time into figuring this out. They didn't just write a plot and then fill in the blanks. Like this was a serious commitment.
Yeah, 100%. It was incredibly done. Like because initially what happens in the very first season is each episode kind of focuses on individual main characters that you're introduced to, right? So
Yep.
you have a whole episode focused on Shizuo, and we'll get into these characters too. You have a whole episode focused on Izaya and Celti, and these are all main characters, but you don't know how they all intertwine yet.
Hmm.
And once they introduce all the main characters, they then all intertwine. You'll see inklings of them. Like I love the little touch in the very first few episodes where like main characters walk past each other in the streets of Ikebukuro before they've like
Before
actually
they
met
know
each
each other,
other.
right? They're just
Before they know each other,
that is
and they just
so cool.
casually move past each other, and it's just like foreshadowing that's done. That's so well executed.
So much foreshadowing, which you have to expect with character development like this and the depth of this show. It's like it wouldn't make sense if there wasn't a bunch more levels of detail in every other aspect. Like it's so detailed in every aspect, you have to see that in the foreshadowing. And as the TikTok I just posted, if you guys haven't seen it, explains some of the main characters like names, and their names themselves are foreshadowing to what's going to happen in the show with those characters. It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
It's very, very cool. I mean, they put so much detail into this. And just so you guys know, this is easily available on Netflix, but Netflix is planning on removing it.
Hulu has it as
It will,
well.
yeah, Netflix is planning to remove it within the next month or two. So if you only have Netflix and you don't have Hulu, definitely go check it out there. But if you have Hulu, you're good. You're safe. You're going to be able to watch it whenever you want.
There you go. I think it's on Crunchyroll. I wouldn't want to be quoted on that. I would have to double check that, but I'll put that in.
I believe it's on Crunchyroll,
But
but
just subbed.
it's not, yeah, just subbed. It's
Yeah.
not dubbed. Which is a question I have for you. Did you watch it subbed or dubbed?
The first time, well, I watched it again, but this is probably the sixth time I've seen it. The first time I watched it subbed, and then I watched it dubbed a bunch, watched it subbed again like last year, so then I watched it dubbed this time.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I watched when I first initially watched it, I watched it dubbed because this was like when I was first getting into anime.
Mhm.
And I watched it dubbed. I watched the entire thing, season 1 and season 2. So you basically just have do ra 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 with 2 exclamation points, and then you have do ra 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 X2. Um, and I
X2.
watched both. But watch both of them dubbed, and then afterwards I watched it subbed, and then this time around I did a mix, right? I did, like when I was like super hyper focused, I was doing it subbed, and then when I was kind of like laxing in bed, I did it dubbed, and I would just like mix it in between, and I would just have
Absolutely.
like an experience between the two because the dub is not bad for this.
I was
There's
gonna
a
say
lot of
there's not a
animes.
that you have some Japanese cultural differences in this sub, but when it comes
Yeah,
down to actual plot lines, not a lot changes.
yeah, not a lot changes.
Yeah.
The interactions are still very similar. It's just that some characters are just a little executed a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But like characters like Izaya is still very well done in
Yeah.
dub and sub. Like there's and like Shizuo is done well and so dub and sub too. So it's really nice. I only one that I don't like is Mikado. In English, he sounds more like a
Yeah, the
kind of
voice
a
is really
kind of a
different.
bitch. Yeah,
Yeah.
he kind of
He's like
this kind.
really soft, and that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
We're gonna paint the setting here for you guys, and then we'll get into the characters that way, starting with Mikado. But yeah, in the dub, he is a lot more like that's why it's so much more shocking. I think in the dub version as
yeah.
as the series develops.
Yes. Yeah, you definitely see more character. I feel like there's a little bit more character development because the voice gives him so much more innocence in the dub versus the sub,
And
right?
then how you hear that
Um,
voice actor change it later and really
yeah,
bring that menacing vibe to it, like, oh my god.
so if you guys didn't know, Mikado Ryogamine is the main character of this
Yes.
entire story. He's the one that you're following for the most part throughout the entire story. Obviously, you have main characters who are associated with him, but this is the main character that you're noticing how he develops, how everything around him affects him as a human being. And I love that human perspective that they put into this. They actually show real mental development within each character.
Oh, absolutely. You see mental illness. I was going to say that too. You see a lot of depression, you see anxiety
Yeah.
written throughout these characters, full of anxiety. Especially Henri and a few others, but yeah,
Yeah.
there is definitely a focus on mental illness and why these characters are doing what they're doing. They have motivation, and a lot of them it's certainly because of mental illnesses. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you have like and you even have like innocent anxieties like Mikado, like being anxious about talking to Henri, like in
Which
like a
is
like
what?
romantic setting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Versus like other anxieties where like shit's getting real and I need to like actually calm down. Like there's a lot of depth to the levels of anxieties because in reality there's a lot of depth to anxieties in general,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You have stuff like social anxiety, and then there's stuff where it's like anxiety from like agoraphobia, or like you have anxieties for like actually dealing with certain situations that are very taxing on the mind, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely. We're finding
very
all kinds of
interesting
new
take
ones. There's
into
a
it.
new one, work anxiety. So it's people that like
Yeah.
honestly feel like they never do a good job. Like I'm one of
Yep.
those people. I'm always like looking for that reassurance that like, well, did I do a good job? Like, so
I think that's very consistent among millennial culture
oh,
in
absolutely,
general.
yeah,
We need
feedback,
a lot of reassurance and feedback, and I'm
yeah,
the same way. I like, dude, if I'm doing something, I always ask my friend, like somebody who's with me, am I doing okay? Am I having? Are we
right,
having fun? Are we
yeah.
okay?
Are you
Like I
enjoying yourself?
always
Do you need
ask.
anything? Yep,
Yeah.
I'm
And
the
that's
same
like the
way.
very much so like the I call it the host syndrome for me. Like I always want to make sure, are people happy? Are you guys having fun? Are you
Wait,
doing well?
are you a
Because if
Libra?
they're doing no, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Cancer Gemini cusp. So
Hey,
I
I'm a
always want to
cuss
make
baby
sure
too.
other people are doing well, because if other people are happy and doing well, then that means I'm happy and doing well. That's like my own
Right
internal
there
issues,
with you,
right?
bro. All right,
Yeah.
so let's paint them a little scene. We have
Go for it.
Mikado Ryugamine. I can't remember if Masaomi moved out of. I think Masaomi moved out of the country, right? The very
So Masaomi and Mikado, they live together in the same little podunk like farmer
yes, they
little
go to middle
village,
school
right?
together, right?
And then Masaomi left way before Mikado left.
Yeah, I think he left
Masaomi,
at the
he went
beginning
out.
of middle school. So
Yeah,
Masaomi
he
goes through
dipped
middle
out.
school, but him and his good friend who moved to the city of Tokyo, Ikebukuro, Masaomi Kita, they stay friends. They talk online and whatnot. And Masaomi is starting to get kind of lonely in the city and dealing with a lot. So he kind of asks his friend jokingly, like, "Oh, you should move here for high school. You should go to the high school I'm going to," which is really common in Japan. Japanese kids who live out in the country will often like, "Oh, I want to experience the city," so their parents will often like let them go and like board at a high school.
Yep.
So that's kind of our setting. Mikado decides, well, it's high school. I want to go check out the city. So he's heading into town. I think it's on a train. He's on a bullet train. And that's
Yeah.
where our story picks up with Mikado Ryugamine, innocent little freshman heading into Ikebukuro, the city of Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, and I also love that cultural aspect, like showing that, because like in the United States, we don't do that, right? We stay
Yeah,
home with
that's
our
not a
parents
thing.
until we're ready to move out. Whereas in like Japan, people send their kids out and they live in like little podunk, like small little apartments, and they go to high school and
Yep.
they stay in these apartments and like that's what they do. And like you live on your own from a very early on age
Yeah,
versus what
14,
we
15,
like versus
16-year-olds. Yeah.
yeah, versus what we actually do, right? And that's where you get like the issue culturally where like some of these kids become recluses, right? They stay inside their apartment and they don't leave. And that's like an actual big issue in Japan because you
Yeah.
have all these people who are recluses and they don't contribute to society. So it's very interesting how these type of experiences that they have culturally can affect how the kid develops versus like our lives in America, right?
Oh, absolutely. And not to mention, the social anxiety and the way interaction and social interaction, not to mention or to mention like romantically, especially. So a lot of these people are driven into their little studio apartments. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they can't just like walk up to girls and ask them for their number and look like fools like we do, and get shot down a million times because this is considered extremely embarrassing and almost heartbreaking. To a
Yeah.
lot of guys who have been sitting in their studio fantasizing about certain women
Yeah.
for months at a time.
And it really does show like and this goes into the anime too. It shows the importance of establishing relationships with other people outside of your family, right? Because if you're living
Yes.
on your own in the city, you got to have friends. And that becomes your separate family. That becomes your separate little network of people that kind of keep you sane, right? They keep you from becoming that
Absolutely.
recluse. And that's what, and initially, when Mikado enters the scene, having Masaomi there for him is what really helps him kind of mold and adapt to the city life, right? Because if he didn't have Masaomi, in my opinion, he wouldn't be anywhere where he is now. Like towards the end of this
Oh,
anime,
absolutely.
he
Absolutely.
would not have adapted well because his personality initially is very weak in
Mhm.
comparison. Masaomi is more of the outgoing extrovert, where Mikado is very much so introverted and kept to himself. So having that relationship led him to making all these other relationships and developing his own network of people.
Oh, absolutely. And you could see that Mikado coming from the from a rural area, wanting some excitement in his life, definitely a thrill seeker. It's kind of weird. You see a dynamic in Mikado that's it's weird. He's very shy, but there's a side of him that really does like the spotlight in a weird way. Like, but he doesn't want it on him. He wants to do good things, but he doesn't necessarily want to get the credit for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
100% makes
and
sense.
this boredom of him living in, this is what causes him. I'm assuming everyone who is watching has seen. So, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about the whole series. Mikado is so bored that he forms an online gang with some friends he met online,
Just as a
called
meme, literally just a
yeah,
meme.
just a meme,
It
just a
was
joke.
it was just a meme. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Because just to give you guys background, Ikebukuro is full of like these gangs, right? So a lot of these individuals who are living out on their own, they're teenagers and whatnot. They go ahead and they make these groups and these gangs so that they can feel accepted by all that jazz, all that kind of mental health stuff. But
Yeah.
in this world, you have these things called color gangs, and you have gangs like the yellow scarves, and then you have people like the blue squares, and they kind of run the city in their age group. So you have like these little gangs which are like the high school kids, and then above that is like the yakuza shit.
Yep.
So you have these
Yep.
little gangs that run around, they do a bunch of bullshit. They either like they go ahead and they'll like graffiti some stuff, they'll like run certain areas of the city and all that jazz. So
Fight
he
with
ends
the
up
other
creating his
gangs.
own gang.
Yeah. Yeah, as a meme. He makes a gang as a meme and decides like I kind of want to have this gang do some good. I want to have this gang, not be like the other gangs. But
Yeah,
that
yeah. So
comes a
he
bit
starts
later.
Yeah, so he starts it with a group of friends, like online friends, creates this gang, and he just like they just spread the word. They just go on forums and shit, and like
They
they
give
just
out the
mention,
password.
they
Yep.
give out the password. They just spread the word about the dollars gang, and they have no color. They're not associated with any colors or anything like that, so no one knows who they are. But a lot of mystery behind it, right?
Right.
And it started off as a meme, and then it was great. And then all of a sudden, people started like taking the Dollars name and adhering it to like really evil acts that were happening. Like, oh, someone was killed, or oh, someone was a hit and run, and they were blaming the Dollars group that he created. And all this negative publicity made all of his digital friends basically disappear on him. All the
Yeah.
people who helped him start the actual meme disappeared on him, and he was on his own. So he was like, "All right, you know what? I have like 1,000 people in here on this little like group page that he made. He made a web page that he sent out to people with a password, and he said, "Hey, why don't we do some good? The dollars didn't do all that. Let's just like remove graffiti or something." And he basically just said it out of random, and people were laughing at him in the forum. And then all of a sudden, graffiti was removed,
Yeah, I was gonna
and it
say at
shows.
first he took some heat. People were calling him a pussy, calling him, all these terrible things. And yeah, I think he woke up one day and there was a news article where some graffiti had been removed, and where the news had claimed it to the dollars, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically, well, no, basically said like, "Hey, all this graffiti was removed, and not like, a single person couldn't have done it overnight. So it
right.
had to have been a
A
group of
group.
people."
Yeah,
And that
that's
showed
right.
him that he has like some sort of influence, right?
Hmm.
Suggestions in this group of over 1,000 plus people could reach, and it shows that he actually has some sort of influence, which then leads to future decisions that he makes.
Hmm. But right, fast forward. Well, I guess not really fast forward. Unpause. We're on the train. We know a little bit about the dollars. We see Mikado communicating with some of his friends online about it, mostly communicating with Masaomi, and he arrives in the city to meet his boy, Masaomi Kita. Should we get into that character there?
Yeah, sure, 100%.
I'm gonna pull up his
Man's used to
character
have
stuff.
he used to have black hair. Now he has blonde hair. You see a lot of people do this in Japan. I feel like the black hair is very much so like native to them, and then blonde hair is like
It's
the
that
cool thing to
Western
do.
culture, yeah.
Yeah, it's that Western culture look. So that's the first thing that Mikado notices is like, oh, you changed your hair. And Masaomi is kind of your comedic relief right now. When you first meet him, he is more so the comedic relief. He's very much so flamboyant, like a flirt, just trying to have
Oh
fun,
yeah, he's
having a
your
good
extroverted
time.
friend. Everybody's got one.
Super extroverted friend, always just trying to have a good time. And that's your first interaction that you see with him. And then basically Masaomi takes Mikado up an escalator out of the boat, like the subway system, and then they enter the city. Right, and then
Yeah.
Masaomi introduces him to a whole bunch of various people as they walk around the city. You meet people like Dotachin, where you meet like, there's like a little group. Dotachin is one of my favorite characters. I
Odonachin's
believe
awesome.
his actual name is Kyohei Kadota, and
Yep.
he has a little squad of homies where it's Erika, Walker, and Saburo, and they're just a bunch of like a group of homies who just like go and eat sushi together. Dotachin just like he's if you actually notice, I love this aspect of it. They show you background like information about the characters too to add more depth to it. So like Dotachin actually is starting up his own little like jazz club in the background. I don't know if you noticed that, but like on one of the scenes, he
Yeah.
was like doing the tiling for his bathroom of the jazz club that he's opening. And then you have Walker and Erica who are like ultra weebs and they relate everything to animes. And it's really, really cool. I resonate with them heavily. And then you have people like Saburo who's really into like Western culture and whatnot. So you really get to see a lot of depth in these characters,
Oh,
and
very
all the
much so.
characters that you meet in the very first episode end up being crucial core characters in the future. So like you'll see like Celti drive by, which we'll get into in a few, and you'll see like Shizuo walk by, and you'll meet
What's up,
Simon from Russia
mustache bro? How
Sushi.
are you,
You
bro?
meet a whole bunch of different characters in the
How
very
you
first
doing, man?
episode,
Thanks for
and
being
you
here.
don't
Thanks to everybody
realize
for
how
being here.
important
How
they
are you
are
guys
until
today?
later in the season.
Absolutely. It's like you don't even you're like, who's this guy? Like they pass all these characters. I think in that first walk you see Simon, you see everybody. I think you do see a clip of everybody if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
you see an inkling of Isaiah thrown in there. You see a whole bunch of random people, and you don't realize who they are until the story progresses.
Right, right, right. So we have Masa Omikita move to the city. In the background, as we now know that Mikado is the founder or the leader of this weird little transparent group called the Dollars. We find out much later, and I mean, in the first few episodes are very light. That's what I like about this series. It brings you in and really lets you get comfortable before it hits you with anything abrasive. You
Yeah.
meet these two friends. You kind of see their dynamic. It seems really wholesome. Masa Omikita is really funny. No shame whatsoever. Very confident kid. We later find out he is the leader of the Yellow Squares, which is a color gang in
Yellow
the city.
scarves,
So
scarves.
yeah, why did I say that? Blue
Yeah,
Squares, Yellow Scarves. The Yellow Scarves, which is one of the color gangs in the city, as we talked about, that's been fighting for a while. And I wanted to bring up something Fallen said earlier about the different age groups in the gangs. This is actually very crucial. Masaomi brings it up a few times when he's scolding the Yellow Scarves for things that they've done. He's like, "You guys got to chill out. We keep messing with this like grown-up shit. The Yakuza's gonna come after us, right?" So these high
yeah.
school gangs only they stay low key and they fight each other. They don't mess around like you said with the Yakuza or the bigger events because it could be the death of their gang.
Yeah, because there is situations where you meet certain characters who are trying to gather information, and then meet up with and he's an investigator. He meets up one of the yakuza leaders, and the yakuza leader's like, yeah. So there's the color gangs below us, there's the dollars below us, and then you got us. We
Yeah.
handle the real stuff, and then they handle all the little menial stuff. So this little age group, it's like the step before the yakuza. Like you join these gangs like the yellow scarf and the blue squares, and then you either leave and you go do real life, or you end up
Or
going to
you
the
yeah,
yakuza.
you end up going
Yeah.
into the Yakuza.
So like you have that kind of dynamic, and Masaomi was the leader of the yellow squares, yellow scarves. Now I said it, yellow scarves,
My
and
bad. I started something.
and they basically had a feud with the blue squares, which is another color gang. And they eventually got into a fight that you don't really hear much about. They got into a big fight, and then both of them kind of like fizzled out. They kind of disappeared a little bit. And then I guess at that point, Masaomi said, "All right, I'm gonna head out because I don't want to get even more in deep with this stuff." And he dips out, and that's when the dollars they gain even more traction. Because
Yeah.
now these two main color gangs who ran the show for their age group have fizzled out. The dollars grew even more and more because they were more transparent, and anybody could be a dollar. And that's the beauty of it. It could be any age group. It doesn't matter who it is or what's going on. And that also leads to future issues. Because remember, with the age groups of the yellow scarves and the blue
Well, thank
squares,
you
it
so
stays
much
the
for
high
being
school
here,
guys.
mustache,
The
bro. I'm
dollars can
sorry
have
it's raining.
adults,
I got a
old
beautiful day
elderly
right
women.
now in
Like you'll see it in one of the
sunny Southern
scenes. You'll see that it
California.
has age groups across the board. You have people who are just like Westerners who are hanging out in Japan who join the dollars just to be able to be a part of something while they're visiting Japan. Like
Right.
it's really wild, dude. You see a lot of people take part in this, and then in the future, Yakuza do notice this type of stuff.
Yes, they do. They do.
And I'm gonna leave you with Henri while I go take a TP. Be right back.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk a bit about Henri. So when Fallen gets back, he'll be able to add to this, but I'll pull her up on screen real quick. Henri is basically as Mikado goes to his first class, they're asking about class representatives. In Japan, they have this thing where there's usually a boy and a girl in a class, and they're going to be the class representatives of like that year in that area. Henri stands up to do it, and Mikado is very interested in Henri and was like, "Well, I'll do it too." And that's kind of where we get the introduction to Henri Sonohara. Is they're both class representatives. Henri is a very, very interesting character. Very cute. Starts off very shy, very anxious, very humble, doesn't talk much, is kind of reserved. We find out a lot more about her later, being the fact that she does happen to be Saika. She is one of the original Saika, which is pretty interesting. Saika, and this is where the fantasy elements come into play. Um, hey, we just got into it a little bit. We talked about how she starts out, and I just mentioned how she turns out to be Saika, but I have not talked about what Saika is yet. If you'd like to take that.
Yeah. So, all right. So you have a lot of fantasy elements. So we were talking so far. What we've been discussing is more so the slice of life, the relationship kind of focus, a little bit of the action focus because we're talking about gangs and violence and
Yeah.
yakuza and
Yep.
whatnot. But now you get into there's two main elements that kind of bring in the fantasy and the sci-fi element, and this is also horror too. Taika, it basically is the horror aspect of this whole anime, and it's known as the slasher initially. So you'll see inklings throughout the first few episodes where they kind of just talk about, oh, the slasher has killed another group of people. The slasher has killed another person. A slasher has killed, and you just see these random occurrences of like the slasher going
Yeah, it's
on,
like the
and
name
it's
the
really much,
media gave Psycho.
yeah, and it's really much so in the background. And then all of a sudden, if we haven't mentioned, they have a group chat. There's a group chat of like key members, all the main characters. They're in a group chat, like, and they don't know who each other are
They're all
in
using
this group
fake
chat.
names. It's very
They're all
interesting.
using fake names. Yeah. So you have like people like Mikado or Taro Tanaka, and then you have Seton, which is, I believe is Celti, and you have all these different names for individuals. And in this group chat, all of a sudden, Saika ends up joining and saying kill, 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 and then it says must. And then it starts spamming the name mom, 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 mom,
Mother,
mom over and
mother,
over,
yeah.
mother, mother, over and over and over again, and this creeps people out. And I'll let you take it from here now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. As he said, in this little group chat, all the characters are there, and you start to slowly figure out who they are because they don't
Yeah,
tell you
who's
who
who?
these people are. You're seeing these random names like Taro Tanaka, and like you said, there's some other names in there, but it ends up being Celti. I think Mikado is in there. Well, I know Mikado's in there. It's Celti,
Yeah,
Mikado,
Izaya.
Izaya's in there.
Izaya's in
I
there.
think Masaomi shows up sometimes.
Yeah, Masaomi shows up later. I
Yeah.
believe Henri's in there, and Shinra is also in there. So like really core characters are in there, and a few people just pop in every once in a while, like new characters in the later seasons. But the main ones that you encounter in the first season are Taro Tanaka. You'll find Seton, which is Celti. You'll find who else? Dotachin is in there as well as Dotachin. That's his like pen name.
Yeah.
And you have a lot. So like his friends call him Dotachin as a pen name. So that's the first one that you actually figure out. Later and later you'll see that Mikado is typing in as Taro Tanaka.
Yeah,
Izaya
we're
some
gonna
way
do
somehow
like
figures out
probably
that he's
2
Taro
hours.
Tanaka,
I'm
and
thinking
Izaya
mustache, bro, not 3,
refers to
2.
him.
Thank
See
you
you
so
later,
much for
Taro,
that.
and like dips out. And you realize, oh, he knows, like he's a knower.
Yeah,
Izaya,
he calls him that, and
yeah, he
he's
calls him out.
standing there kind of shook, like, oh shit.
And we'll go into Izaya in a few, but let's finish up on Saika. Give us a little bit of the backstory on why she is this
Yeah,
cursed
so it's
blade, you
pretty
know?
sad. We don't really understand until much later in the series. I think it's in like the later arc of the series that we find out why or how Henri became Saika, and it's pretty sad. So her dad was an extreme alcoholic. His business was failing, which caused him. He was actually, this all ties in. He was an antiques dealer. And this is actually where Saika came from. Saika is a blade. Saika is a cursed Japanese sword. And I can't remember really the backstory on why Saika is a cursed sword. Do you remember that?
Why it's a cursed sword? I believe it was used to just kill a ton of people
Yeah.
back in like the Shogun era, and that's why it became a cursed sword. Yo, fun fact: she was born on Halloween, which makes sense
Oh,
for her
All Hallows
character.
Eve. Yes, it
That's
does.
amazing.
That's
So
so
good.
awesome. Okay, yes. So Saika, it is this cursed Japanese blade, which gets sold to Henri's father's antique shop earlier in the series by a character we'll talk about later, which is Shinra's dad, I do believe, is who sells it to him. But this blade is cursed. Somehow the mother gets a hold of it. Anyway, the business starts to fail. Henri's dad becomes very aggressive, starts beating the crap out of Henri and her mom. One night, Henri's laying there bruised and kind of reserved. She starts to, like, what a lot of people do in abusive situations. They like reserve themselves. They go into this dark cave in their mind where like that's where they are and they're not existing in what's happening. But anyways, this one night, he's like pounding on her. And Henri's mom shows up with a blade and just like hacks him to death. Just as like has these red eyes and is smiling the whole time and just like destroys him with this blade and then looks dead at Henri, and I believe she says like I love you or something like that, and then kills herself in front of Henri. And then Henri, the police show up. Henri tells them she really kind of doesn't know what happened. She like blacks out, tells them someone broke in or something like that when all this had happened. She somehow keeps the blade. They don't talk about that a bit later, or like
Yeah.
how she gets cut by it by any means. They actually don't even go into that. Like after this event, Henri has apparently grown up and kind of kept the blade the whole time and has been Saika. But because she is like she has this whole parasitic kind of idealism in her head where she believed that she is a parasite, being that she has the power of Psyche and whatnot and can take control of people. She tries not to use it as much. She doesn't use it for malicious intent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really does show like what Nova just explained. It shows why her character acts the way she does. She's super dependent on other individuals. She kind of latches on to other people because she has no one to latch onto now. Her parents are gone, right? So
Yeah.
she originally had a friend that she was latched onto, but then we'll get into that what happens to her friend in a few. But she ends up disappearing. So then she has no one really to latch onto, and then she finds Mikado and Masaomi, and then she kind of just becomes accepted by them. And she realizes that she's not latching onto them and not really becoming dependent on them. She's actually experiencing friendship for the first time, which is an incredible experience for her, especially someone with so many traumatic events going on around her.
Yeah, I don't remember in the sub, but since I just watched the dub again, I do remember Henri even makes a quote where I don't know if it's I think it is Henri that says it, but she's like she doesn't really understand the like first of all she doesn't understand how to love, being that her
Mhm.
parents like her mom was like I love you and then kills herself in front of her. That fucked her up
Yeah,
and doesn't understand love, and then doesn't understand the difference between love and like friendship love. So this
yeah.
having the two boys there and trying to understand that dynamic is very confusing for her, especially feeling very parasitic with Saika. But yeah, that dynamic of not understanding the difference between love and friendship love, which I think a lot of us can relate to, especially at a younger age. Some of us now, depending on your age or maturity level, you know. That's a really cool backstory to Henri.
Yeah, no, it's very very cool, and yeah, that quote takes place in the first season on the episode. As I mentioned, each episode kind of focuses mainly on one of the main characters,
Oh,
and
it's in
this is one.
hers.
Yeah, it's in her episode where basically Masaomi mentions that Mikado's interested in her, and then she kind of walks away, and she's like, "I really don't know the difference between friendship and love, and I don't know how it works." And meanwhile, when she's walking by and saying she doesn't really know understand love, she sees Seiji making out with the
Her
individual
missing best friend, right?
yeah, her missing best friend who has a different head, which we'll get into that in a few.
Yeah.
But a lot of crazy stuff happening in this anime. So that's Henri Sonohara. Fantastic character. Now, who do you want to get into? You want to get into Celti? You want to get into Shinra, Izaya, or Shizuo?
Oh,
Who are you
dude,
feeling right now?
Izaya is one of my favorite characters of all time. I want to save him. Let's get into Shizuo.
Shizuo?
He brings in the combat and the action and the shonen
Yeah.
elements of the anime.
Of the anime. This is
Yeah,
true. I mean, Shizuo is a crazy character. So, let's say Mans has anger management issues, right?
anger
So,
management issues to
management
say the
issues,
least.
to
Yeah,
say the least. And let me just say, thank you for the follow, Brawny. I appreciate it. So Shizuo basically, when he gets very, very irritated, his body kind of just goes on autopilot. And what happens is that he's super strong, but his actual bones can't handle it. So the man's picked up a refrigerator as like a 5-year-old and was about to yeet it at his brother for taking some snack away from him because he got super upset, and it like shattered his femur and his hips and his arms and shit. And as he kind of moved on, he kept basically doing this over and over again, kept breaking his bones, kept
yeah,
trying to get stronger, and his goal is just to become so strong that he could control his anger by being able to be mentally strong rather than just physically strong. So you'll see him get into fights. You'll see this man pick up light posts out of the ground and yeet it at people. You'll see him pick up like vending machines and throw it down like a block street. Like, he is crazy strong, and his job right now is he's basically an enforcer, right?
yep.
He
He
works
works as an enforcer with a collector. Yeah,
yeah, with the collector. He's basically a money collector. And the guy's name is Tom. And they'll walk around and they'll go and they'll basically collect money, and the people are like, "No, I'm not going to pay you." Shizuo picks up a refrigerator again, and then the guy pays him.
throws it through a
So
window. Yeah,
yeah, throws it through a window. So he's the enforcer character, and he also has a lot of issues with another key character, Izaya, and you'll also see that he has a relationship with Shinra too. So there's a lot of levels to this character. He's actually brothers with a pop idol, which is his brother, which is another Hiwajima
Kasuka.
individual.
Yeah, that's
And
yeah.
great character and complete opposites, right? Shizuo is emotions on his sleeve. His brother is like lack thereof emotion.
Yeah,
Man's is
super
just like
reserved and totally
super
in his
reserved.
head. Yeah.
Yeah, super reserved, and like the one gift that he gives to Shizuo, because Shizuo has struggles staying in a job for a while. He's bouncing from job to job, doesn't know where he can stick. He ends up becoming a bartender one day, and then his brother shows up and says, "Hey, I don't want you looking like a schlub being a bartender. I want you to keep this job for once." And he gives him a bunch of suits to
Mm.
wear. Lo and behold, he does end up losing the bartending job, but since he got that gift from his brother, he always wears those suits no matter what,
Yep,
every
he's
single
always
day.
dressed up
Because
looking good.
he always dressed up looking good because he loves his brother.
Yep.
And that shows a little bit more development into like the familial relationships that you see, and this relationship develops in the future as well. In the background, Shizuo went to high school with Shinra and Izaya. Shinra is the son of a, let's say, a diabolical evil genius scientist kind of guy.
Fantasy
So,
real doctor guy.
yeah,
That
yeah.
yeah.
And Shinra is also very much so into science and like biology and all this kind of stuff. And he took a fancy to Shizuo because Shizuo is a science anomaly, right?
Yeah.
He's an enigma why his body works the way it does.
Something to
So
study.
Shinra ends up establishing a friendship with him, and they become really good friends. Shinra is also friends with Izaya, and Izaya is a sociopath. Shizuo, ever since he met Izaya, did not like him. And you'll see this is kind of like almost as a comedy that goes, a comedic relief that goes along the entire show. But whenever Shizuo sees Izaya and Ikebukuro, Shizuo goes off the panhandle, goes and just starts destroying the city, just throwing shit at Izaya, trying to kill him. And they try and kill each other, and then Izaya always gets away. It's kind of like a Tom and Jerry
Oh, the dynamic
situation.
is very interesting. I mean, you have
Yeah.
Shizuo, who is, I look at it as like creation or peace, like tranquility and chaos. Like
Yeah.
Izaya is chaos, Shizuo is obviously peace. But this is funny because Shizuo is very, very aggressive personally, but doesn't hurt a lot of other people. Izaya, not very aggressive personally, but continuously causes chaos and pain for other people. A very funny dynamic. Yo, Lunar Tech, thank you so much for the 69 bits, bro. I appreciate you, bro. Taking a break from cleaning the pool. You have a pool? Holy
He has a
shit.
pool?
You have a pool,
Damn.
Lunar? How am I like just finding out that you have a I'm coming over, dog. We're
Yo,
coming over.
are we having a pool party?
Anime Crunch in 2 weeks will be held in Lunar's pool.
Hot tub stream confirmed. Hot tub stream
Hot tub
confirmed.
stream with the boys. All right. Back to it a
So,
little bit, yeah. Because we haven't even
so
talked
then,
about Isaiah yet.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna hold off on Izai. I want to talk
Yeah,
about
not
Shinra.
yet.
So Shinra is
Before
a
we move on,
fantastic character.
sorry
Yeah,
to cut you off, brother. Before we
you're
move
good.
on, I want to mention that the name Shizuo Heiwajima means peaceful island, which is pretty
Yes,
funny. It's an ironic foreshadowing to Shizuo's character in the series.
it's very ironic. It means the man is like the opposite of peaceful, but he
Yep.
wants to be peaceful. He has the
He does
drive and
he
the
desires it.
desire to be.
Yes.
Yeah. He wants to be strong enough to be able to be peaceful, but his anger gets the best of him, which is wonderful. It really touches on all sorts of different types of mental health issues, and I love this anime for that.
Oh,
So now you
absolutely.
got Shinra. Shinra is a very intelligent individual. His day-to-day job is he is a
Oh yeah,
surgeon for
Lunar.
the
We're bringing
Yakuza.
the weenies. We're
And
bringing the beer.
basically
Mexican
people
beer.
who get hurt in the
Cuz that's what
Yakuza
I
fights and
love.
all that kind of stuff, who can't go to hospitals, right? Because they'll get arrested, right? Shinra
Absolutely.
is their go-to guy. And that's how Shinra makes his side hustle. That's how he makes his money. Because the man's is a
I was gonna
fantastic
say it's his
surgeon.
main hustle. Actually, I think he's just a straight up underground doctor. I don't think he
Yeah,
works.
he's just a straight up underground doctor. That's true.
Yeah,
And that's his job on the day to day. And that's how he grew up. And his father is kind of like this evil genius kind of guy, and he gets more so into the sci-fi kind of stuff too.
right.
And this is where you end up meeting Celti. Do you want to talk a little bit about Celti?
Yeah, and something I just realized is you said when they come out of the color gangs, as we were talking about when they get older, the three examples would be Shizuo, Izaya, and Shinra. They all kind of went into Yakuza work after that,
Yes,
after they grew up.
exactly.
Yeah.
After they
Um,
grew up, it's true.
you talk about Shinra. Yes, you said Shinra, right?
Yeah, Shinra, and then that leads into Celti.
Perfectly. Yes, let's talk about Shinra. As Fallen said, Shinra, Shizuo, and Isaya were high school classmates. Shinra is like an underground doctor, has a really nice apartment in Tokyo, obviously
Super nice apartment,
working for some of the
bro.
most powerful people in Tokyo, like, mending the Yakuza, mending Shizuo, helping people out. A lot of work you see him do for free, actually, and some fantasy work, some things that happen later in the series, like him, Following and I were talking about earlier, reattaches a head to someone else's body. First of all, reattaching a head, no.
Yeah, like
Reattaching to someone else's body, no. Um, it being alive, no. The head keeping the it's out there. If you guys watch the series, you know what I'm talking about. But so Shinra has incredible technique, so much so that he's able to do things like this or perform plastic surgery to the point of fooling people's loved ones and family, which he does quite frequently for people that also need to disappear. So he's not only mending people that are like shot up or whatever, but he's performing plastic surgery or your basic routine, doing checkups on Yakuza bosses' kids and things like that. But Shinra is a very genuine character. Um, at least we believe him. I believe him to be, even
Yeah.
overall. I believe him to
Well,
be.
I mean, he wears his heart on his sleeve.
He's
His
very
intentions are
honest.
always known. Yeah,
Yeah, even if it makes him
very, very
seem
honest.
weak, he's not scared to say what he's feeling, and I really like that about Shinra, and I think that's why he has one of the best or strongest relationships with the least ripples in the series, like his relationship with Celti, a character we're going to get into here very soon. I wish there
But
was more I could
that's
say
my
on. Go
that's
ahead.
my favorite love relationship.
Oh, it's
That it's
beautiful,
such a
right?
cute relationship because it's so well done.
The shy girl and the boy who loves her like obsessively, like
Yeah, like obsessively loves her, but she also like she has like kind of like the dominant personality in the relationship,
exactly. Yeah,
but
the dominance is switched.
he grounds her really really well. So it's
Mhm.
a great dynamic. And then let's go into Celti. Celti, you'll see her in the very first episode referenced
Yep, I'm
as
gonna
the
pull her
Headless
up on screen.
Rider.
You guys have probably
Yeah,
all seen her in promos. If you haven't seen the show, she's kind of like who they used to show off a lot. She is the chick in the black suit with the kitty bunny ears, biker helmet. She's
yep.
adorable. She's Celti.
Everybody cosplays at her as her at various conventions. I've seen this cosplay so many times because it's a
It's a
black
very good
latex
one.
suit with a helmet. That's all it
Yep.
is. So she's a fantastic character. You meet her initially, and she is known as the Headless Rider or the Black Rider, depending on what version of the show you're watching, dub or sub. And she kind of goes around completing jobs. And what happens is she's a transporter, right? So what she'll do is she'll transport things, or she'll go and recover individuals. She'll bring a person to point A to point B. And she kind of just came to
Oh
Tokyo,
hell yeah,
and
Lunar.
her
If we're
main
doing
objective
that,
is to
I'm
find her
bringing
head. Now, the way this works is
God, I
she is
can't remember the
considered
name of
a
it. Jameson.
Dualahan.
Jameson,
So
and I
she's an
want some of that
Irish
Dr.
fairy
Pepper to
from
put
back in
in
the
it.
day. And a Dualahan will basically, they don't have a head. They're like a headless rider, but they carry their head on their arm. Just like the what was that back in the day in the American horror? It's like Pumpkinhead, but like he will carry his pumpkin head around on a horse. He's also a headless
um
rider.
it's Sleepy Hollow, isn't it?
Sleepy Hollow, yeah, yeah, yeah. So same type of scenario. So
Yeah.
the Dualahan is found in Irish fairy tales and whatnot, and she ends up being found by, lo and behold, Shinra's father while she's a stowaway on a boat. And what happens is that she's on that boat. She meets Shinra's father. Shinra finally gets to see her. And Shinra, keep in mind, is super young. She's been alive for like thousands of years. Keep that in mind. She's been alive for a very very long
Yeah.
time because she's a fairy. And at some point, she loses her head. I'm not gonna
Well,
I'm not
actually,
gonna
that's
really.
why she's going to Tokyo. She's chasing her
Yeah,
head. That's why she
she's
gets
trying
on
to
the
find her
ship.
head.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
knows it's on the ship and she's following it there.
yeah. So she loses her head,
Yeah.
and that's why she's here. And then she ends up communicating with Shinra and Shinra's father, and then basically Shinra grows up with her, basically watching over her, and so on and so forth. He falls in love with her. And now she's in Tokyo, kind of searching for her head, and to kind of make the time go by a little bit faster, she completes these little odd jobs that she's given by various individuals. And one of those various individuals is Isaiah, the information broker.
Yep, she often works as a protection for Isaiah because he has a lot of enemies.
Yes, a lot of enemies.
Like I think she makes quite a bit of money from that. It's pretty crazy that he makes his money from information brokering, but we will get to that in a bit. We're still
Yeah.
talking about Celti. There's even more to go into. The black bike, I think we should talk a little bit about that
Yep.
happens very quickly in the scene. But she is an Irish fairy, a fallen Valkyrie, and she rides a horse. That's what like the whole thing comes from, but she sees a motorcycle before she gets on the ship. She realizes it's more of an industrial world. She wants to blend in. Her horse takes the form of the black bike.
Yep.
Therefore, the black bike actually makes no sound, or it makes no motorcycle sounds, but it makes horse
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah, it makes horse sounds, which is
Yeah.
great. So, and when you first meet her in the early seasons, she's very low key. she'll zoom by really really fast so nobody can really get a good look at her, and she likes to keep everything on the down low. And then eventually you'll see throughout the season that she then gets to a moment where she says, you know what, I want everybody to see me. And she kind of has character development, right?
Oh
She
yeah,
you see
her
her from going from
announcement.
more of a recluse, and then she kind of announces her existence among the world.
Well,
And then
people
she
start to blame her for things, and
yeah,
people are like terrified of her and calling her a monster. And I think at this point she kind of like she's done being scared and done being worried, like you said, and it's just like I'm fuck it, here I am, I'm a monster. Like
also something to note that since she doesn't have a head, the way she communicates is by using a phone, a little PDA, and she'll show people texts, and that's how she
although
communicates with
she
people.
can produce sound because in that moment when she announces herself, that whole crowd can hear her. She's like
Yes, that
screaming
was
it. Yeah.
yeah, that was a very interesting moment because normally she can't
She
communicate because she
communicates
has no
through
vocal
text.
cords.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but like at that moment, she had so much passion and energy behind it that everybody was able to hear her, which is a great moment, very monumental moment in her character development as a whole. And what happens after that too is that now that she's very much so in the public eye, the police force actually go ahead and create a motorcycle unit to pursue her and make sure that she doesn't mess with them.
And they're pretty
And then
badass. She's
yeah,
terrified of them.
she's terrified of them. Yeah, they
She like
flex on her
goes into
heavy.
panic and like freaks out. It's very cute.
Yeah. So she's a very, very cool character, and this is where you get the fantasy aspect in the show, along with Saika and whatnot. I really appreciate her character. She falls in love with Shinra, and that's my favorite love interest in this entire
One of
show.
my
It's really well
favorite
done.
moments in the series is Shinra like talking to her about how she can hear and feel and perceive the world around her, and like he goes through this whole spiel about, well, my theory is like it's this black ooze and you're taking information this way, and at the end of it she like types a bit on her phone, holds it up, and it's like stop being weird. And it's like one of my favorite. It just shows off the dynamic that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. It's a really, really fun dynamic. I mean, she relies on him heavily too.
Hmm.
Like she'll cry in his arms and stuff like that. And what Shinra always says is that you don't need your head. I love you as you
I
are
will
and
always
who
love
you
you
are
as you
now.
are, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like I'm in
And
love with you. Yeah.
his main fear is that if she does get her head and they reconnect, she'll regain all her memories and forget all about him. And that's why he actually takes active steps to kind of prevent her from getting the head back. Because he low key knows where the head is at.
Yeah, I think her father actually, in my opinion, is initially the one who took the head. He's the one who has
Yes.
it eventually, so I believe he is the one
Yeah,
who
yeah.
takes it
So he's the
initially.
one who he took the head, and then he sold it basically to a pharmaceutical company
Yeah.
and sent it to them. And then that leads you into the whole Seiji issues and all that kind of stuff too, which we'll touch on in a few.
It's like 10 arcs at one time.
Yeah, there's a lot of arcs going on all at the same time, and that's why it keeps you hooked. Because there's so
Yes.
many stories that you want to kind of get the cliffhangers out of, right? There's a ton of them. So
Yeah.
then the head is sold to this pharmaceutical company, and then that pharmaceutical company is led by what's her name? What's her name? You have Seiji. Oh yes, Nami Yagiri.
Yagadi
Nami, yeah,
Pharmaceuticals, yeah.
Yagiri Pharmaceuticals. And just to mention them, I'm not going to go too in depth in them, because they're not really huge main players in the beginning of the first seasons. They're only in a few episodes. Nami Yagiri she runs a full sector of the of basically of a pharmaceutical company, and her family has the head. She finds it, and then her brother finds it, and her brother falls in love with this head in a jar,
A lot of
right?
people do. A lot of people seem to be like it has like a spell. I think just because it's Celti's head, being that she's a fairy, it charms
Yeah,
men. Like it has this spell over men.
yeah. So then after that he falls in love with that head, and then eventually what happens is that Seiji, her little brother, he has a stalker. The stalker ends up coming into his house, seeing the head on his basically his desk, and then
Yeah.
he ends up killing her, then calls her sister, and calls his sister and says, hey, I just killed someone, I need help. And then instead of just removing the body and getting rid of it, they take the head of the Doulahan, and then Shinra reconnects it to the body that
Like
he just
who's
freshly killed.
like fuck it.
And then and then what happens is the body reanimates, but the memories of that head are gone. It's the memories of the girl that he just killed, and then that girl is kind of just posing as this head to just be accepted by the person she was stalking because she loved him, and then that whole love dynamic happens, and then eventually what happens is they realize that the girl retained her memories is not actually Celti's head's memories. So then there's a whole weird love dynamic where the Seiji says, I'm gonna love you because you have the head of the person that I love, but I don't actually love you. And the girl was like, okay, I'm all right with that because I love you. And they have this
Oh,
super weird love dynamic that goes on. Not to mention, the older sister of Seiji has a little bit of an off kind of love for her brother.
yeah,
So
it's definitely a hentai anime type love for her little brother. It doesn't get weird like that. It doesn't get like
doesn't
physical or
get weird, yeah.
romantic ever. But she
It's just
definitely like
psychologically
yeah, it's like a very obsessive, obviously unhealthy love. But I want to touch on that because that is actually the story up until a very interesting moment that happens pretty quickly too in the story. Um, the girl with the head that Seiji's into actually reveals that that isn't Celti's head, and Celti's head wasn't attached to her. That Shinra actually just gave her plastic surgery to look
Yep,
more like the head. And
yep.
then so Seiji's like, well, you're not the head, but you look like it. So yeah, it's kind of weird. The whole story, you do believe that the head is attached to this girl, and then you find out she just had
That it's
surgery
not.
to look like the head, and the head is not attached to her. Yes, it's kind
And
of
then
another plot twist. Yeah.
and then the real head ends up falling into the hands of none other than Isaiah, the information broker.
Izaya Orihara.
You want to talk about one of the best sociopaths ever created in
Yes,
any
I
sort of anime?
do. Yes, I do. Everyone, this is
The only person that I could compare him to is Dennis Reynolds from It's Always Sunny. That's
what
the
a
only
yo.
level
Honestly,
of
that's why you're my co-host. What a masterful comparison. Well said. Well said. If you guys watch Always Sunny, which I mean, I feel like there's a big group of people who watch Always Sunny, but we're hard to find. I ask that a lot. People are like, "What's that?" And I'm like, how do you know who Charlie Day is?" And they're like, "Yeah, the funny guy, the little guy." I'm like, but you don't
that
know Always
funny
Sunny.
guy. Yeah, did you
Okay.
have Danny DeVito? You got all sorts of great characters in there.
Oh,
Dude, it's so
dude.
good.
All kinds, dude. Yes, and then you have like guest characters that come on that are fantastic. But back to Izaya Orihara, I'm super excited about this character, Izaya Orihara. Let's talk about his name real quick because it foreshadows his entire character. Well, not his entire character. Well, kind of. Izaya. The Japanese like they took this name is based off of I always pronounce it wrong. Isaiah. Isaiah, sorry, it's Isaiah. Every time I say Isaiah, it messes up the pronunciation. Isaiah, which is the biblical name, and it kind of has a meaning roughly to like one who watches over the crowds, which is pretty funny because as we've stated, Isaiah is certainly a sociopath. I don't want to call him high functioning because I don't think he's in that much control over it. As you see him like setting fire to a chessboard in his apartment at one point, just like
I think
hysterically laughing.
I'm pretty sure initially in the beginning of the show he's a high functioning sociopath.
You think he
He
loses it
has
over time?
he
That's
loses it
interesting.
over time.
That's
In
true, yeah,
initially
because he's not
when he
so
starts,
abrasive. Yeah.
yeah, he's not abrasive, he's not impulsive. Initially when the show actually starts, he's a lot more in control of the situation because his quote is he loves humans, right? He
Mhm.
loves analyzing and observing humans and how they function. So the first time you ever meet Isaiah, he pretends to be somebody else and he's texting this girl who's suicidal and then tries to go ahead and
What
basically
a
get her to
scene.
commit suicide, right?
Yeah.
But instead, he then pays other people to kidnap her. And then what happens is when she gets kidnapped, she has second guesses about she's like scared, right? She has a scared mechanism. Oh my god, I'm kidnapped. What's happening? And then he basically analyzes that whole situation. He calls Celti to stop the kidnappers, and then when she was saved, she felt relieved. And then Celti basically drove her back to where Isaiah was. They met up, and then Isaiah psychoanalyzed the crap out of this girl
Oh
and
my
said, "Did
god,
you feel
breaks her
relieved?"
down.
Breaks her down. Like you wanted to kill yourself, but you got worried when you got kidnapped. Now you feel relieved when you got saved. So then why aren't you killing yourself? And then just laughs at her and then
Yeah.
leaves her on the top of a roof to go and kill herself because he breaks her down so aggressively that she becomes minuscule. She feels like nothing. And then she goes and tries to kill herself. Luckily, Celti's still there, uses her shadows to kind of save her, and then says, "Go on your way, live your life." And bro, that
Thank you,
whole
Lunar.
that whole entire scenario was outrageous. This guy is is sadistic. He's evil, and I love it. It's so well done.
It's really crazy mustache, like in the way he does it. It's like why I like characters. I really have a passion for sociopathic characters. I really like Sherlock Holmes. I really like Dennis Reynolds. Isaiah Orihara is a good example. I mean, you could name him all day long, but it's really his character is fantastic. So he's an information broker in the city, working with the Yakuza, working with Celti, working with Shinra, working with anyone who needs to buy and trade information. But he gets bored. He's a sociopath. He doesn't have emotion, so he likes to watch other people experience emotion and go through things. Is another reason he enjoyed breaking that girl down or seeing her get to the point of suicide, because Isaiah can't imagine suicide. He has no emotion. He can't hate himself or not love himself in a way. Thank you so much for the biddies, J Drifts, by the way. I really appreciate that, bro. But yeah, that's Isaiah Orihara, and he really like that's why he's an information broker. It makes complete sense. The second half of his name, Ori, means folding. Hara means field, and in Japanese, folding field knife or field knife is what they call a pocket knife, and this is actually his weapon of choice,
Yep.
which he only uses for defense. As we talked about, he hires Celti as protection about 90% of the time, but when Shizu-chan comes after him, he has the pocket knife. And there's a lot more to be said about that. He helps, as we find out later. Isaiah is the one who helps. He helps Masao, not Masaomi, Mikado put together the dollars as a gang. He helps institute almost all of the violence in the series and a lot of the things going on, but he does it from the background. You see him do a few nice things for people, but you see that these things really only ultimately lead to what he wants.
Yeah, his own self satisfaction, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He and I love the fact that he just likes to have information on everybody, and he always tries to work information out of people when he talks to them.
Did you
That's
notice at
his.
his desk he always has his computer, and then he has like a small, like in Japan they have like those smaller laptops, but they're usually only meant for like web surfing, but he uses it as like a secondary. That's his secondary like false communication method.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. It's really, really well done, dude. This character is so incredibly executed. Both the dub and the sub version of him are really well done. The character you and as I mentioned, he's a high functioning sociopath to start. And then as everything kind of divulges and he basically is like a puppeteer and he watches all these individuals kind of interact and all this stuff unfold, he slowly but surely loses grasp and control of everything that he's doing. And
Hmm.
then he starts lighting fire to the table and all that kind of stuff that goes on. So really well done, and I love the development of these characters. It's so good. This is one of my favorites in any anime.
What's truly interesting, and I'm really kind of just thinking about it now, and I've seen this series many times, is his friendship with Shinra. Now that I'm thinking about it, he really doesn't do anything to. He does do some shady shit to Celti, but he doesn't really come at Shinra in any way. Doesn't Shinra stand up for him in a scene in high school or something? Is that in season 2? I'm trying to remember why Isaiah has a friend, like why he's so cool with Shinra, or at least accepts him. But I believe Fallen's communicating with chat.
All right, I'm back.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. We're talking about why. Did you hear that?
No, you were friends with you mentioned Shinra and Izaya together.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Was there a scene with them in high school where Shinra sticks up for Isaiah or something? Like, why does Isaiah have a respect for Shinra? Is it?
I
Oh, it's
think it,
because he does interesting things. It's because he's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
that's
because
why.
he's super interesting.
Yeah,
He's
because he
that's
fucking he
Izaya.
does weird shit.
Isaiah literally only cares about people who interest him, and Shinra is very interesting
Peace,
because he
Lunar.
does
Much
some
love.
very interesting stuff. He does a ton of interesting things, and the way his brain works just doesn't make it does. It's not like a basic human.
Right.
Shinra's brain works in a very peculiar way, which always surprises Isaiah, and that's why Isaiah likes him. Because he never knows what's gonna come next. He's not predictable.
Right.
And Isaiah, like for example, that girl that he broke down and pushed to suicide, she was predictable to him. That's why he
Yeah.
didn't care for her. He wanted her. He didn't care if she died. Whereas
Yep.
Shinra, he actually cares about him because this guy's not predictable. He's always on the edge of his seat to see what this guy's gonna do next.
I think that's why a lot of
Whereas,
people say that he loves Shizu-chan in a way, because he's
yeah,
so unpredictable. so
Yeah,
violent.
Shizuo is so unpredictable, so violent. And I love the little like you'll have Izaya interacting with other characters. For example, like there's a scene where he's talking to Mikado, and then like all of a sudden Izaya grabs Mikado, shifts him to the left, and a
Like a
vending machine
fridge or
flies past
something.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just flies right past him, right?
He's like,
And
well,
then
I
you see
gotta go.
and then at that moment he's like, "All right, I gotta go, Taro Tanaka. See you later." And then Mikado's like, "Oh shit, he knows my actual pen name." Like has his realizations. So the guy's a very good information broker to a T. The guy knows his information and he's good at dealing it. And it's
Thank you,
really well done,
Jay.
man.
Yeah.
Really, really well done.
So let me look back at the main list. Who do they have in the main list? I mean, that
What
doesn't
do you,
sum up Izaya. I say watch the second season if you guys really like the first season because the
bruh.
character just continues to develop. We've kind of
Yeah.
touched on most of the main characters, but there's a lot of other people in here we could talk about, or we could jump into the storyline a little bit. What would you like to do, Fallen?
Um, let's see. I mean, I'm looking at the character list. We've talked about all the main
Oh
key
my God,
players
Jay! Thank
for
you
season
so
one at
much.
least.
400 biddies
I mean, I've
rocking.
mentioned
Love you,
Simon.
dog.
Simon is,
I'll be there for
I
the
would say,
podcast
the
as well,
only
guys. The
individual
Team
in
Develop podcast
Ikebukuro
is right
who
after
can
this, so more
actually
content to come.
match Shizuo's strength. If you'll notice that Shizuo will throw like there'll be scenes where he'll throw like a lamppost, and Simon, this big giant Russian African American man, catches it. And he'll just be like, "Nah, fam," and like he's the only one who matches his strength. He's a very interesting guy. The guy helps run a sushi spot, and he's kind of like a individual that's always around town that everyone knows. You get more information about him and the Russians later in the second season, and he's a very cool character. I mean, we talked about Erica, we talked about Walker, Dotachin as
What was
well.
the name of the reporter? I'm trying to find him.
Yeah, the
Cause
reporter.
he
So
was
the
he had a whole
reporters.
episode, right?
Yeah, he had an entire episode because he was looking for the strongest guy in Ikebukuro,
Yep, writing a
and he
magazine article, which is why
and
we know
that's
Shizuo and Simon are the toughest.
yes. I'll look for his name now.
I can't even. I think it was an H or a K, but I honestly can't remember what it started with. He was the
He's
he ended up being the father of
Mika Harima.
Harima. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the girl who disappeared and then ends up getting a new head, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's Shuji Niikawa.
Niyakawa. Oh yeah, because that's maybe her mom's name.
Oh,
They are
okay. So
set.
it's not. No, no, it's not Mika Harima. All right.
It's the other girl,
Niyakawa is the other girl that
the
the
Psycho
teacher.
one.
No, yes, so back in the day, before we get into this show, you have Takashi Nasujima, who is a pervy teacher who hits on the high school students, and he had a relationship with this guy's daughter, Shuji Niyakawa, and then she ends up leaving the city and transfers to a different school, and then disappears at some point. And this was the person that Henri was connected to before she met Mikado and Masaomi. Now, Shuji Niyakawa is basically a reporter, and he's looking for the strongest individual, the toughest guy in Ikebukuro. And this is where he then goes and meets with the Yakuza, where I mentioned the Yakuza mentioned that the blue squares and the yellow scarves are beneath them, right? That's where you get that information from. And then you end up finding out Shizuo is the toughest guy in the entire city, and then Simon's the only one who can really match him. So those are other key characters that you will meet as the story goes on. There's a lot of cool guys like Shinjin, which is Shinra's father, who wears a gas mask wherever he goes because he says that Tokyo is dirty.
Filthy air. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
pretty funny
filthy
going
air.
through all of us having to wear masks now because I watched this series in like 2017 or something, and it had no relevance to the Western world, and now it
Yeah,
has
yeah,
all the relevance in the world.
yeah. I mean, if you back over there, a lot of people just have been wearing masks before all the
For
COVID stuff
years.
is
Yeah,
happening
for I think
for
decades.
years,
Yeah.
like decades. Like people have just been whenever you feel sick, you put a mask on, or if you go into an area, because remember, there's a lot of people who live in Tokyo, and there's a lot of air pollution. So it's
Mhm.
actually better to wear masks out there than not, because the air is low key actually
Filthy.
kind of
Same
not
with
okay.
LA.
So
LA's
a lot of
really bad.
yeah, it's a lot of smog that's around there, and it's not good to inhale all that stuff, you know.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting arc, the Niyakawa arc, and being that his daughter ends up, I think getting like I think Henri accidentally cuts his daughter at some point, and then she, has the psycha like thing and thinks she's the mother, finding out later that it's actually Henri who is, and that's when we find out the big like reveal that Henri is the original psycha owner.
Yeah.
So that's a very
Lots of
interesting.
crazy
So
reveals.
many
So this
arcs. Like there's just so
there's
much going
so many
on.
arcs, dude. There's so much stuff
This
going on. There's
character
a lot
list
of
is
different characters.
ridiculous.
Yeah, this entire thing is crazy. I mean, at this point, I'm looking at the fandom, and they have separate sections for like antagonists and anime
Yep.
exclusive characters, and like they have categories for the amount of characters that are in this show, which is wild. There's a lot of depth in here, and then let's go ahead and touch a little bit on the storyline. Like, what
Yeah.
else do you want to talk about?
So we kind of brought ourselves up to about 3/4 of the storyline, talking about all the reveals, but we didn't really talk about the final summation and kind of what goes down, which I think is really interesting because it mirrors what kind of happened with the blue squares and the yellow scarves, at least for
Yeah.
Masaomi and what he went through.
Oh, but before that, we gotta talk about the big reveal of the dollars.
Well, yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Let's talk.
So so what happens is that girl, right, that had the head replaced. That girl ends up getting into a whole tiff because Celti is chasing after her, and she bumps into Mikado, and then Mikado takes her home to have her give her safe haven, basically.
Mhm.
And then what happens is that Mikado realizes that this girl has value because people end up coming after him. And luckily, Izaya and Celti were there with him when the group of individuals coming from Nami Yagiri. Because remember, she was the one who originally had the head
Right,
and
this
needs
the
this
older
girl to be
sister
with Seiji.
sends her
Because
henchman. Yeah.
yeah, sends her henchman to go get this girl because it's her little brother's, like, I guess, plaything at this point. And sends her henchman to go get it. And then Mikado realizes, okay, this girl has value. So he goes to Nami Yagiri, calls her and says, hey, let's make a trade. And then he got help from Izaya, he got help from Celti, and basically he went into the Dollars forum and said, hey, we're all meeting up at this location. And then he didn't know if people were going to come. Nami Yagiri rolls up with a whole squad of like guys in suits ready to just like take Mikado and kidnap him. And then because oh yeah, keep in mind Nami Yagiri, that whole pharmaceutical company kidnaps people on the regular just to run tests,
Yeah,
human
kills,
experiments,
kidnaps
kills
people.
people
It's whatever.
regularly.
Yeah.
So it's something that happens. It's a story. You'll see it.
It's
But
very normalized. Yeah.
yeah, it's very normalized. Out of all the things that you experience, that's like one of the normal things that goes on. So you touch upon human trafficking and whatnot. So she brings this whole squad of people ready to take out Mikado because Mikado has the girl and knows where the girl is. And then instead, when when Nami Yagiri starts sending these people over to Mikado after he does a big old monologue saying that he wants to help and wants to like make the entire city better, he
Right.
then goes and sends a text saying anyone who's not looking at their phones right now is an enemy. Don't do anything to them, just stare at them. And then basically this entire area while he's doing through his
Which
monologue
just seemed like
gets
a
packed.
crowded market at first. We
Yeah,
just
it
see
became like a
people.
crowded market, but it got even more packed. If you notice in the
Right.
background while they're
Yeah,
having
they
their
fill in.
discussion, more people and more people and more people. And then when he sends that text, literally everyone's phones just start popping off. And it becomes a symphony of like ringtones going off. And then Nami Yagiri is just like, what is going on? What is happening? And then all these people basically prevent the henchman from getting to Mikado. And then Celti comes down from the rooftop on her horse. That's where she
Massive
makes her
reveal.
big
Yeah.
reveal as to who she is. I am here. Look at me. I exist. And then she ends up being revealed as part of the dollars. And then you have Izaya who's there too. So that's a huge thing. And then basically what happens is the only people who know that Mikado runs the dollars is Celti and Izaya at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And he's the one who gathered everybody. And there was easily over 500 people in that one little district, shopping district. So they end up doing that trade. Everything goes on as planned. And yeah, it happens. And that's the big reveal for the dollars. And that's a
I
great
think
moment in
that's
the
the
anime.
night that Henri finds out as well. That Henri finds out about Masaomi and Mikado. Because she
About
finds out from Celti about Mikado being the leader of the dollars and
I
Masaomi
I
being.
don't think that happens just yet.
Oh, maybe it's
At that
later.
moment in time.
It's
Yeah,
just
at that
another
moment in
night
time,
scene.
Masaomi and all them, they don't know anything about Mikado starting it or running it. It's only Izaya and Celti at that point. And then
Gotcha.
later on the season, then people start realizing, and then stories kind of start unraveling, and people's personalities start to break and bend, and it just gets crazy towards the end, guys.
Oh my god, doesn't it? So yeah, I mean, pushing through this story, we kind of end up toward the end where it's this final summation. Everything's really heated between the yellow scarves and the well, actually, so much happens. It's like the yellow scarves is revealed that most of the yellow scarves are actually blue squares who've come in to take over the yellow scarves. So the blue squares are causing havoc, and I believe they once again kidnap a girl, right? It kind
Yep.
of plays out the same way, and this is what happens earlier between the final battle between the blue squares and the yellow scarves is Masaomi's like main girl gets kidnapped and they break her legs. Masaomi runs all the way there but gets too scared to go in and help her. She eventually is saved by Kadota? Or no, Celti saves her the first time, right?
Yeah.
Celti saves her the first time. The second time, the same thing kind of happens, but Masaomi actually is like motivated, ends up getting the shit kicked out of him through some stuff. Fights like gets like who was it? It was like it wasn't Albo, but it was like one of the like douchey guys from the Blue Squares, and he
Blue
like
squares. Yeah.
yeah, and
And
then
yeah, and then you realize that he was actually running the yellow scarves at one point, and they were getting into some really heavy stuff, and then his girl was getting hurt, so he left. And that's why he's like the comedic relief for a hot minute, and then you see his character development just kick in right here. And it's
right.
crazy. It's really well done.
So by the final episode, I think it happens in the second to last episode, but basically Masaomi's out of the yellow squares. They're like, "You're out of here. We're leading this."
Scarves.
Like, huh?
Scarves.
Scarves. Damn, I did it again. Yellow squares. Yellow scarves. It's why do they have the same S name? That's so and then the dollars is so different. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so Masaomi is no longer in the yellow scarves and it looks I can't remember where the dollars are at this point because they kind of go through some highs and lows toward the end there really quickly where like that's like a big high where Masaomi kind of saves that or Mikado saves that girl but then they're kind of lower in power people are leaving the dollars um
It goes through waves, right?
yeah
And then they kind of just heat like they you have a whole big boiling pot, and then it goes down to a simmer, and everything kind of simmers out for a little bit, and they end the season, and then they bring the everything back. And then the second season is where shit hits the fan. You meet a whole bunch of new characters, and all these playful characters that we met in the first season start to warp, and their personalities change, and Mikado becomes something completely different than what he actually is now.
That's what I was doing. I was thinking of season 2, like how do I talk? And then I was like, oh, the first season kind of simmers down. We have Masaomi in the hospital. He's reconnecting with the girl, telling him, like, I'm into you. I see what I did wrong now. I'm totally devoted to you. And they take off. Masaomi and his girl take off. Mikado's left in the city with Henri, class representative. Things are simmering down and normal. But it's pretty cool because Masaomi shows up in their text chat and Mikado everybody kind of instantly knows it's Masaomi, and he's like, "Hey guys, just wanted to say hi." Da 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 da. And they're like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, please come back. You're welcome here anytime." And that's kind of where that leaves off. Is everybody's kind of mellowing out. Things are good. And Shinra and Celti are on the patio doing it, like they're
Yeah,
having a
they're
good.
having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very
Shizuo's
high
just straight
note.
vibing. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a nice high note that they get into, and it's a really a great way to end this season. And then the second season, oh my god, it's just so well done, and everything just kind of goes off from there. It's very much so worth the watch. I really, really appreciate it, and I really enjoy it, guys.
Oh yeah, let's it's time for the deep dive. It's time for crunch time, dude.
The crunch time,
It's
crunch
time for
time.
crunch time. You want to go first?
Yeah, let me see. So let me hit some Jeopardy music real fast, and let me think. Give me like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Jeopardy music. Guys, let me know what you thought of the series. If you watched it all, it's crunch time. Put your ratings 1 to 10 in chat. I want to know what you guys thought. And thank you
Yeah,
guys so
definitely
much for
let us
being
know in
here.
chat.
You know?
Definitely let us know. But I would give this series as as are we talking as a whole or just season one?
As season 1. Season 1.
Season one.
Yeah.
I would give it a solid, let's say an 8.5 to a 9.
Damn. Hell
8.5
yeah.
cuz 8.5, I mean, all right. The pros, right? It hits like over 5 different genres of anime. That's one thing that's incredible to me. There's so much different aspects and perspectives that go into it. The development of the actual character relationships and individual characters is bar none, right? It's incredibly done.
Absolutely.
It has some great character development that I love, and you see it all in season one. A lot of that usually in other animes takes multiple seasons to see more development. Season one has crazy development for a lot of main characters, and it's really, really well executed. There's characters that I love. There's characters that you're meant to hate, and it's really, really well done. The voice actors do a great job of personifying these individuals. So I really appreciate all of that. That's all positives in my eyes.
Right.
Only negative that I could see is that for an individual who is not very used to high paced like arc development, it will be a little bit
Absolutely.
hard to keep up. It'll be a little
Yes.
bit hard to keep up with everything that's going on because when you get into like 5 episodes deep, there's like 6 or 7 different arcs that are all simultaneously happening, and though they do a good job of tying them all together, if you're not paying attention the entire time, you're gonna get lost. And
Yes.
you're gonna be completely lost in the sauce. So this anime as a whole, I would recommend is you should be if you're gonna watch it, you got to be watching it wholeheartedly. You can't just be sitting on your phone texting and just listening to it. You got to be looking out for all the details in the imagery and in the words that people say. And that's the only thing that gives me a point off, right, from being a
Yep.
10. It's that it's a little hard to keep up with if you're not completely committed to watching it.
Well
But
said.
beyond that, well done. And the score, the music is so well done too.
Oh, yes,
Gotta
it
mention the
is.
score. The score
Yeah.
of the actual show is very well done. It has like similar vibes. Each character has their own kind of music type. They have they do a really good job of doing the score for like the horror moments and the fantasy moments, the action moments, the relationship moments, just background noise. Like they do a great job of even just executing the sounds of a city. Like
Yes.
all that kind of depth to it is really well done.
I
So
think
I
I
really
love that.
appreciate
The
that too.
ambient music, the ambient sound of
Yeah.
like the cars and the city and the lights, like that really, and this like that floaty little doodly doodly, like that Ikebukuro sound there anytime
Yeah.
they do shots of the city, like, oh, I love it. But going off of what Fallen said, I'm not. I'll give you my rating at the end. I agree with you 100%. That is the only negative is that it is very fast paced. It cannot be a background show. You can't be doing anything else. You really need to pay attention to what's going on because, as Fallen said, there's these little ties and these little connections that if you miss, you won't understand why this character like is fucking with this character or why this character is motivated to do this because these little motivations turn out to be very big later on in the story. But as I've
Yeah.
said all for 3 weeks, this is one of my top five. I love this anime. It gets a 9.9 from me. And it is only
Woof.
because yeah, it's in my top five, man. It's like my
Yeah,
top.
yeah,
It's
true.
like my third. So yeah, it gets a 9.9. Second only to Ghost in the Shell and Initial D, but we'll talk about those at another time. Just like what fall, that's the only negative I can see is that it, especially if you're new to anime, I wouldn't even recommend it to people. I try not to recommend it to people who are new. In fact, I probably only recommend it to like my friends who are a bit of an otaku, like myself or Fallen, and I know will be interested in it and will watch it.
Yeah.
So just bear
'Cause
that in mind.
it's not like the typical like action shonen, right?
No,
It definitely touches a lot of other kind of aspects to it. So I would give this to somebody who like has watched a lot of anime. They don't really know what else to explore yet,
cheers.
and they want to see what other genres they want to look into. This will be a great option for them, right?
Absolutely. And the positives, I mean, a lot of what Fallen said, the character development is incredible. The people who wrote this show, I believe to be geniuses.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
mean,
really
remember
do.
remember this show didn't start off as a manga either. This was a light novel. So that's why
Yeah,
you have so much written character development because it's not just a manga written out, right? It's a light novel, so they're like thick books
and
for
that's why
this
I
this
didn't
anime.
mess with the manga this week. I started to read a little bit of it just to see because I've never actually read it. And even the character design is very different. And I don't like that when I'm trying to read a manga and I'm not looking at the same character with the same emotional attachments because they do seem a bit different. It's obviously a lot
Yeah.
more Japanese, but it had Western culture in mind when they wrote the anime. So there still is a Western influence, but they're trying to be Japanese with the manga. It's okay though. I didn't
Yeah.
finish it, can't rate it, but I love the series. 9.9
The
from me.
series is very good, guys.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out if you guys have seen a good amount of anime. We highly recommend it. Remember, it's on Netflix and on Hulu, so you guys can get easy access to it. You don't have to get Crunchyroll or Funimation for this one. Very, very good, guys.
And
So now,
yeah, want to talk about
you
anime
want
next? Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Let's remind people about anime next, and then also I got to mention the next animes that they get to decide on too.
Yeah, dude, your choices. Thank you for putting those up so fast. I've already voted.
Oh, you've already voted?
Yeah.
Woof. All right.
Yep.
So then let's go ahead and look at those choices first, and then we'll go ahead and touch upon
Perfect.
anime next. Yeah. So, in regards to your next choices for the next deep dive, guys, we have the following. So I went with a more of a horror kind of genre this week. So your options are High Rise Invasion, which is found on Netflix. It's a Netflix original series. I've been actually watching it recently in between of all the Durarara content that I've been grinding through. I've been watching High Rise Invasion. It's very much so action packed. It's pretty nifty. The way the actual story is developed is these individuals just going along their daily lives end up being teleported into a separate reality, kind of a separate space. And in this space, you have regular humans running around, and you have other people who have these high-tech masks on. And these masks individuals are trying to kill all the people who don't have masks on, but they don't outright kill you. They force you to kill yourself. So what happens is you
Oh.
can't leave. You have to stay in these high-rise buildings. You're basically staying in these giant skyscrapers. You can only access the top floors and the rooftops. And to get from building to building, you have to go across long drawbridges all the way across all of them. And you have these different types of antagonists who have masks on, where you have the different types of you have like the maid one that has knives. You have the sniper mask. You have all these different, like you have like a explosive mask, and you have all these different type of masked individuals who are all being controlled by the mask, and they're forcing people to kill themselves. So that's that whole genre right there. That one's really really cool.
That
I've
one
been
sounds
watching it.
really interesting. I might
It's really really
might
interesting.
change my vote.
Now you also have one of my top 5 animes, Tokyo Ghoul. Oh man,
Ooh.
it is one of the best executed animes for season 1 that I've ever seen. It's so well done. Character development, par to nobody else. It's so well done. Main character changes his whole perspective on the world. It's really well executed.
Incredible. I've seen the first season. Love it.
There's a
Yes.
reason why I have those sound bites on my soundboard for the intro song and for the breakdown of the song too. I love it. It has great animation. The fights are incredible. The actual creation of the world, like the world mapping and the world creation, is incredibly done too. You have basically what's happening is you have ghouls and you have humans, and these ghouls they look like humans, they act like humans, but they actually have it's called a kagune, which is basically a tail type of object that takes various different forms depending on the individual, and they only survive by eating humans or eating human blood or human meat. And there's a whole faction of individuals, like almost like the FBI, that are countering them, and the story progresses as the main character ends up meeting another ghoul, and then some way somehow, I'm not going to ruin anything, but he fuses with that ghoul, and then the story progresses from there. Really, really well done. One of my favorites. I have all the pops for it. I got artwork for it. I highly recommend Tokyo Ghoul, even if it doesn't win the vote this week. Definitely watch it on your own time. It's really well done.
It
It's a
got my
beautifully
vote.
executed anime. The first season is really, really good. Second season is technically not canon to the manga. It goes off the rails a bit, but it's still a very good season. And then season 3 is canon, so there's a little bit of a gap in between season 2 and season 3 because you have to fill in the gaps with like an online summary, and then you'll understand what's happening in season 3. But season 1 and season 2, mint, fire, really, really good content. And then now you have the last option, which is Another, which is regarded as one of the best anime horrors in the game. It's really, really well done. It's
Ooh.
all about basically an individual who comes to a new school. There's a girl who's dead but not dead, and then people are dying in this like kind of like high school arena, and individuals just start getting killed left and right. And it's kind of a mystery horror. Really well done. I don't want to ruin the ending because the ending twist is something else. It's really Another. So
Another.
definitely check it out. Look at the trailers that I posted both in my Discord and in Nova's Discord, and then you guys can go ahead and vote and see which one you guys want us to dive into.
Yeah, everybody, exclamation point Discord in Fallen's chat. If you haven't, it's sitting up in mine. You guys can jump in our Discords, and we have Anime Crunch chats chilling right there. Come talk to us.
I've been
Come
putting
communicate.
yeah. I've been putting out a bunch of content like character battles in my Anime Crunch section, like
I
kind of
saw
showing like
that.
2 different characters from different animes, see which one you guys think would win, and all that kind of stuff too. So it's
That's pretty
a lot of fun.
badass. Okay, a little bit about anime next, you guys. We've been talking about it a
Here we
lot.
go.
Here we go. That was so well done, dude. I thought that was a soundbite. Was that a soundbite?
No, that was me.
Well done. Anime
Nasu.
next. Big anime convention in New Jersey coming up. Fallen told me about it. We kind of got onto it early. We applied what, like 6 months ago for this?
6 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, they ended up getting back to us and they want us to stream. They're going to feature us. We're going to partner with them for a whole weekend of charity events. We're super excited. It has been like a crazy year of charity for both of our channels and I'm stoked on it. Like it's just insane. Like I think we've raised more money than I've ever made off Twitch, which is just pretty
Yeah.
awesome. We're stoked to be on it. We're going to do a panel style show for that one. It's going to be a very long show. What do we have? 4 hours scheduled for the show?
It's a four hour panel. Each hour is going to be individual segments that we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So as we planned, the first hour is
Jay.
going to be the anime through the decades kind of hour. That's going to lead into meta anime analysis, and then we have a special guest segment by Nine Lives, our fellow anime analyst that you can find on YouTube. And then on the ending, we'll be bringing you an
Much
extra
love, Nine
little
Lives.
segment. Yeah. And then along with that, we'll do Q&As and all that jazz. So definitely check it out if you guys are interested. And then along with that, both of us are key featured streamers for the Friday day of the digital convention. And Nova will be doing a whole racing for, I believe you're doing Forza, correct?
Yes, sir.
He's doing a whole Forza event for Anime Next. Man's got the whole rig, by the way.
Bro, I love
Man's
this
has
thing.
a steering wheel. He has a shifter. He has an e-brake. He has a clutch. He has a brake. He has the gas. He has the whole setup.
We're ready to go, baby.
Super cool.
Learning to drive all over again.
And then I'm going to be one of their key featured FPS streamers, where I'll be doing a full Tarkov stream, while we're bringing in various streamers to come in to talk about anime while we play some Tarkov.
Yeah, I got the e-brake, Jay. Check her out. That's my boy. It's just a spring, though, not hydraulic. I'm excited for the Tarkov streams. Are you going to be doing a tourney, or is it going to be just a chill anime-focused kind of Tarkov day?
So Friday is going to be the chill anime-focused Tarkov day, and then Saturday, in between our two Anime Next streams, I'm going to be hosting Fireteam Trial Sanitar Selects with the man's Trexcapades, and we're gonna have 20 teams of duos doing a whole bingo board format, 6-hour tournament. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm super excited to have that play out too.
Well, you heard it here first, everybody. If you're interested in Tarkov, we got tourneys coming up. Sign up, get a hold of Fallen, jump in his Discord. I'm going to shout him out right now in chat. If this dog will stop bumping me, he's so needy. Oh, my God.
I'll shout you out too, brother.
Oh, thank you so much, bro.
Yeah,
Never expected, always appreciated. That's going to be my Twitch term. Never expected, always appreciated.
Always apprecited. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Good way to live by. Also, it's always free to be a homie, is what you say too, right?
Well, I ganked that from Miss Kroger, and I try to shout her out now every time because it's an awesome phrase, and I don't want to steal her thunder. Get out from under the desk before I kill you. Thank you. But guys, thank you so much for being here. No, I love him, dude. He's a puppy. He's my brother's dog. And he's so needy. He's just like me, and I think that's why I don't like him.
Mustache Bro, thank you for the follow, brother.
Hey, that's my main mod right there. Mustache Bro is a really good dude. Much love, Mustache Bro. But thanks, guys, so much for being here for the Anime Crunch Durarara Season 1 deep dive and analysis. Crunch Time was fantastic. It got a very high rating from us. I'd love to know what you guys think. J Drifts, I love you so much, bro. Thank you for the biddies today and being awesome. I got to do an ollie, but we'll do that here in a minute after I say bye to Fallen.
Yeah, yo, once again, guys, thank you so much. We love doing these podcasts. We love doing these deep dives. I appreciate each and every single one of you. And big shout out to the big man's called Nova. Fantastic streamer.
Love you, dog.
And a fantastic individual. Mans is intelligent, knows everything about anime just like I do, and we have a good time here.
Are you flirting with me?
We might be flirting. I don't know.
We might be flirting, chat, guys. This is my man right here, Fallen Neophyte. He's the boy. He's the dude. The dude's probably I consider myself like, I'm into anime. This dude isn't just into anime. He is anime. Look, right? Check out his channel. He's an amazing FPS shooter. He's got all the content, all the tips constantly popping on his TikTok and Instagram. Much love, Fallen Neophyte. Thanks for co-hosting the show with me, man.
Much love to you, man.
All right, I'm gonna mute up and do my little ending. You have a great day, brother.
You too.
All right, bye, guys. Bye, Fallen's chat.